This is Patrick Christys tonight, only on GBNews. Coming up, I'll run you through the very first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages with my panel. But first, the migrant crisis in the Channel continues to worsen, with record numbers of small boat crossings so far this year. And after a sudden surge, Vietnamese migrants are now making the perilous journey more than any other nationality. We asked the Home Office for the exact figure. They were unable to provide one. Well, this paints a very different picture to last year, when the Vietnamese made up just 5% of small boat crossings. Migrants have been travelling to the UK from Vietnam for years, though, but they apparently now favour small boats over lorries after 39 Vietnamese nationals were sadly and tragically found dead in a refrigerated truck back in 2019. The Home Secretary spent yesterday finalising deals and details of a new agreement with Vietnam to curb the flow of migrants. But in the meantime, this social media campaign seems to be the best attempt at prevention that he can muster.
I've spoke to people who've got off a dinghy coming over from Calais, and they tell me that they're promised work here, promised living accommodation that's going to be nice. And then when you speak to people 6 months, 12 months down the line, they do tell a very different story.
Yeah, just bear in mind that that's gone out in Vietnam and it's in English. Yeah. I'm delighted to welcome Mimi Vu, an anti-trafficking and modern slavery expert based in Vietnam. Mimi, look, thank you so much. Great to have you on the show. Why are so many Vietnamese migrants now crossing the English Channel?
Thank you for having me on, Patrick. The number of Vietnamese crossing the Channel right now is not related to a direct surge coming from Vietnam. What it is just basically it comes and goes in waves, and this has been going on for the last 30 to 40 years. So most of the Vietnamese migrants who are crossing the Channel now have already been in Europe for a number of weeks, months, or even a couple of years. And it's just a matter of transport and logistics, actually. Maybe the numbers from other groups have decreased, or more opportunities for the smugglers who are smuggling Vietnamese have increased, and so that's where you find the surge. And it's a trade, so everything is based on the principles of supply and demand. So you have, demand from the Vietnam side, right, for Vietnamese who would want to go to Europe and UK to work. Vietnam is one of the top 10 countries in the world for remittances, meaning Vietnamese people go overseas to work and send money back home. So it's usually between 4 to 7% of the country's total GDP. And then,
that's what I don't quite understand, Mimi, if you don't mind me saying. That's what I don't quite understand, because, it's as you just said, it's really not uncommon for Vietnamese people to just go abroad to work legally. So why are we seeing so many of them illegally enter Britain, take that risk across the Channel in a small boat? And also, as well, what kind of lines of work are they getting involved with when they do arrive here?
It's not that they are knowingly and willingly entering illegally. It's mostly the end of the road of desperation for them. What is happening, and this has been shifting over time, is the tactics of the organized crime groups and human smuggling networks that are all part of a larger transnational human smuggling, human trafficking, counterfeit goods, drug production, drug cultivation, transnational business network, essentially. And what it is the Vietnamese are going, and they often will go through Europe first on legal labor visas, because they've been promised work in countries, for example, like Poland or Romania or Slovakia, but they've been charged exorbitant amounts of money from the labor brokers in Vietnam, who are all part of this larger transnational human smuggling, human trafficking network.
Are they not afraid of being deported at all? Are they not afraid of being deported?
It's not about being deported. What they're afraid of is not being able to repay their debt. When you're in Vietnam and the thought of repaying a debt of £50,000, for example, it's mostly abstract, and you're dealing mainly with labor brokers who have maybe introduced you to some money lenders, black market money lenders. When you're already in Europe and you've then taken the risk to go onto the UK because the work that you've been promised in Poland or in Romania has not materialized, or the salary was lower than you were told, or you've been exploited, and then your human smugglers and the services say that the only way to make more money is to go to the UK, and they are put in further debt. And so you're much closer then to the actual criminal elements that are running the human trafficking and smuggling trade. And so then it becomes a fear of not just being deported, but fear of being.
It is. I mean, I was reading that some people, Mimi, can pay $30,000. I think you might have used the 50,000 number there, but the one I read today was £30,000 in order to end up finally getting into Britain. I just think, why don't they just book a plane ticket and fly here?
Because it's completely, it's very, very difficult for Vietnamese to get legal visas as tourists, for example, into Europe and the UK. I mean, the paperwork hurdles that they have to go through is enormous. And the other thing also is the lack of information. So, for example, there are severe labor shortages all across Europe and the UK, and that's where the demand for Vietnamese labor comes from. And so there's this push-pull factor, right? But a lot of the Vietnamese, and most of the Vietnamese who are being trafficked and exploited and smuggled into the UK come from only a handful of provinces in Vietnam, and they lack the information. These are not provinces in the major cities of Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh. And these are people who lack the information of how to obtain legal work visas in the UK, how to get there safely. And so they rely on these unscrupulous labor brokers who lie to them and promise them the world and overcharge them and put them in debt bondage.
Well, Mimi, look, thank you very much. Really insightful stuff there. I'm sorry we're a bit pressed for time, but I do hope to talk to you again very soon. That's Mimi Vu there. Thank you very, very much. Coming